Hi, welcome to Comics Chat. I'm Sarah Cook, and this is a show where I talk with comics creators about their favorite comics and why they love them. I wanted to start the show because of the way that my favorite comics have impacted me. Over the years, the comics I've read, the stories and the art, have just really moved me and really touched me pretty deeply on an emotional level. And I wanted to share that love with other people who are doing some really cool things in the world of comics. If you want to follow me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah C. Comics, or you can join my newsletter. The link for that is in the notes. And today's conversation is with Lydia Monette of Life on Saturn Comics. We talked about the comic Faithless by Brian Azzarello and Maria Llovet. And it's a really great conversation. Lydia is an artist, and I loved hearing her thoughts on how striking the art was for her and why it was so striking and so impactful for her. And I also really enjoyed her thoughts on some of the more risque parts of the comic and why she feels they're so powerful and how they impacted the story in some pretty meaningful ways. Um, I really enjoyed talking with Lydia. I think this is a really great conversation, and I hope you love it as much as I did. So I am here with artist Lydia Monette of Life on Saturn Comics. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work?
Yeah, so I've been an artist pretty much my whole life, like we all are, and I work with my husband on several titles under our own brand, Life on Saturn, and lesser known comics, including Fennec, Rings of Saturn, and then we have a few projects in the works with some other creators, like Mana Kingdoms. Um, and I've been doing comics with him since 2020.
Nice. Awesome.
Uh,
And you and I are working on a short together, which is
I'm
very
excited
exciting.
about that.
um, yeah, so how is it, I guess, working together and how did you guys start Life on Saturn?
I mean, we've always like done all kinds of creative things together. Life on Saturn has morphed from multimedia production to, well, like from music to multimedia production, and now to comics. Um, so I guess we just started off being like a couple of art kids, and it's transformed over the years. Um, but we like to use like many different creative mediums and pull them together. And it just ended up landing on comics because Dom is a huge lifelong fan of comics. It's like they were like something that was given to him when he was really young, like, and kind of was like his OG dream that we kind of like cast aside and we just kind of came back to it. Personally, myself, I've just always wanted a creative career. And I spent a lot of years working for other people. So when I mean, obviously with COVID and everything, even before that, I was ready to throw my hat in for the
Yeah.
other company I was working for, just to give it a go and commit to something that we could build ourselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow, that's very cool. That's exciting. Just um just really jumping in. That's
yeah,
cool.
gotta do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I relate to trying to do creative stuff for other people. Um, I did that for a while too. I had different writing jobs, kind of like blogging and journalistic type writing and marketing writing. Um, it was like at least it was writing. So I got to kind of flex that muscle a little bit, but it still just felt really constraining in other ways and being able to do my own writing is a completely different thing and fun and exciting. A lot of work, but creatively more fulfilling, I think.
Right.
Um, yeah, so do you want to jump on into the comic that you wanted to chat about?
Yeah. So I picked Faithless. I'm not like well versed in like different creators like within the comics world. So I know that Brian Azzarello has written like a lot of like how you say like high profile things for DC and other, you know, companies. And then Maria Lovett, I'm definitely going to be following all the other things she does closely from now on. uh, because this was such a pleasure to read. The covers, obviously, like Maria's art is just like so poppy and just like catches your eyes when you see it. And I remember, I think, seeing it on the shelves back in 2019 and being intrigued, but like I wasn't really like collecting anything. And then when I finally got a chance to like pick one up and look inside, it like just blew my mind. The unholy images.
Yeah.
See, and I was like, this is like they put this on the shelves. Like this
Yeah.
looks I need to read more comics. So, yeah.
Totally.
It's definitely like the writer Brian, he uses the word transgressive a lot, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a good adjective for it in a good way.
I love that word now.
Yeah.
So in his own words, like it's an erotic depiction of faith, sex, and the devil in the tradition of the Divine Comedy.
Yeah. I
And
mean, what's not to love?
like it's so good. And then Maria, like a lot of her work seems to like have like a lot of erotic themes. So just the way that she paced everything, and I was looking at her layouts with the color and like just I love it. I love the style, like the looseness of the lines, like how certain things break boundaries. Like I always, as a traditional artist, like with like rendering and stuff, I think I am still doing too much when it comes to certain pages. Like seeing her work, like, and how the coloring like went with the lines, like I'm wondering if there's like a way that I could like lighten like my process too, because the way she directed everything, and it just, I'm sure that I mean, it took her time, but it looks so effortless for her, you
Yeah.
know? Like that's what the art seems beautiful, like pristine and like just effortless to me. um,
Yeah.
and then
Great.
also as an artist, with the main character being an artist and a lot of the theme like being about ego and like just purpose and the next big thing for your career like in creation, that hooked me before I even knew what like the main theme was. And then as I read, there were things that shocked me that I didn't understand from only having issue 5 and 6. But I finally got to read the whole thing.
Nice.
All 18 chapters. And you'll laugh, you'll be shocked, you'll laugh some more, and at the end, hopefully you'll cry.
That's good to know. I'm only about 8 issues in so far, but I'm loving it. And yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the part about like being an artist, I'm not a visual artist, but as a writer, I definitely related to that. And it's like there's part of her, she's kind of like dealing with kind of like being in your head so much and the like the ego part of it, but then there's the part of it too where it's like, but it really does give you meaning, and it really is about kind of finding your creative meaning and what your art means to you. I definitely related to that part. And yeah, the artistic style too, and the looseness of it really struck me in the beginning, especially because I've read a bunch of Brian Azzarello's other stuff and his DC and his Black Label stuff, and the art is so different tonally. from what he's done there, which is really cool. I enjoy his writing a lot, and it was fun to see him working with an artist who works in a different style, and that really struck me too. So that was cool to see. Yeah, what is there I guess kind of anything else about it that stood out for you or that you enjoyed?
Yeah, like, well, back to the transgression bit, like
Mhm.
the amount of sex, just like the
Yeah.
sheer volume of sex, some of the artistic styles and layout. Like, so when I was like in chapter 5 and 6, I hadn't read the first 4 chapters. So like there's I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but there's like some creative choices where like she switches between partners, and it almost seemed like it was like magical, like shape shifting.
That was super interesting.
But it like when I went back and read chapter 1, I was like, oh no, those aren't different. Like those are different people. That's not the same person. That was just like a creative decision. And I'm like, I get that. If I'd been reading it sequentially, I would have gotten it before. Um, uh, yeah, they did put like quotes in the book, like the editors put quotes between the chapters, and there's like a few of the quotes that like really resonated with me, but none more than the greater the artist, the greater the doubt. Perfect confidence is granted to the less talented as a consolation prize. Robert Hughes. I think it was like, was it
That's great.
Aristotle or Socrates that had like that access of confidence and knowledge?
Mm.
Like the more you know, the greater your doubt. Like the
Yeah. I
so
think
I
that's
really
definitely true.
I feel that on a personal level.
I
Not
do
that I am like amazing or anything, but I am very doubtful.
too. And it's that kind of thing where you look back on like stuff that you created like years ago and you're like, "Oh, I can see what I didn't know at the time but thought that I knew."
Yeah, 100%. And I do think they like I'm not sure if all of these were particularly like I just like love the queerness of it too. Like
Mhm.
as a bipan individual, like I just felt it was very gay.
Yeah.
And I
Agreed.
appreciate that. Um let's see, like there was an Oscar Wilde quote. As we are each our own devil, and we make this world our hell.
Yeah, I think that applies.
Oscar Wilde. I was actually doing a sapphic commission, which is
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And I did some research for it, and because I wanted like different representation, like symbols in it to represent this lesbian relationship.
Mm.
And I found out that Oscar Wilde himself loved men, and he had this thing about green carnations. So
Oh,
that's the
wow.
first thing that popped into my head when I saw Oscar Wilde. I was like, I was like, I wonder how many other like queer people we're gonna have popping up. And sure enough, there was like Frida Kahlo
Mhm.
and David Bowie in there. So good
Yeah.
job, editors. I to be like you too.
Yeah, that was definitely cool to see. I agree. Um, yeah. And as just kind of thinking as far as I feel like the representation of sex, it's interesting to see comics and how they do that in meaningful ways and ways that kind of relate to, I think, the theme of the comic. I reread um Sex Criminals recently. And obviously there's a lot of sex in that also. And I think it's so like I feel like one of the themes of that is they have this space, and not to get too much into a totally separate comic, but this kind of separate space that they can create for themselves where they stop time and they're kind of like free to be themselves within that. And I think that I felt like the representations of sex and sex criminals were kind of all about that. They seemed like that was their place to kind of be themselves and have this freedom. And in Faithless, it's that's kind of where she's exploring, and all of this kind of exploring her art and exploring her sexuality and exploring her magic. It's
Mhm.
all she's kind of exploring who she is. And I think that that comes through in some of those scenes. It's I think the art does a good job of kind of tying it thematically back into what's happening for her overall.
Absolutely. I loved it. Like it was transgressive, as Brian said,
Mhm.
indulgent, like visually, uh and
Yeah.
unholy. And then also,
Yeah.
like most of America, I was raised on Christianity, so
Mhm.
it was interesting. I in the afterword, I think he talked about how sex is like one of the most human, natural things. Like, or like
Mhm.
I'm paraphrasing. This isn't exactly what he said, but like so. But that's the fun part about it, is that like religion, like most major religions, have made it so taboo,
Yeah.
and yet it's the most natural thing. And like even if I can like even if I'm separating myself from Christian roots, like there's no way in my mind to like turn off that societal switch in my brain anymore, because
Mhm.
I've been conditioned that it's a sin, it's dirty, and like um, seeing her just like fall into all of that is just, it's so enthralling in a way that like makes you feel like you're like just a teenage girl reading like your favorite shoujo again. I guess as an adult,
Yeah.
this is like the closest I can get to that feeling, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. Um,
Yeah. I agree. I think that was what one of the things that I liked about it is that Faith just kind of goes all in. And she
yeah.
doesn't question and she doesn't like shame herself for it. She just kind of lets herself explore what's happening.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I'm hooked. I'm only 8 issues in, but I'm hooked. I definitely am going to be reading the rest of it for sure.
Yeah. And then of course like the religious themes again.
Mhm.
I think because we all have like we were built on a puritanical society, we all kind of know the lore, and
Mhm.
and she have a lot of fun like with like taking things that are well known and like turning it on their head, and yeah, uh, that's a guilty pleasure
Yeah.
to see to see that.
Yeah, agreed. I'm all for taking kind of religious lore and flipping it around.
Yeah,
And we're doing that a little bit, not to the same extent, but with the short that we're working on,
yeah,
there's some
it's right
hell
up.
stuff and some devil stuff going on. And it's and one of my other series, No Spell Lasts Forever, there's like Satan fact or Lucifer kind of factors into that too. And it's interesting because I agree. I think this lore is so kind of deeply ingrained in our psyches that you kind of like can't escape it for one thing, but then it also is like really interesting to explore it in stories and um like how does it shape us as readers and as people, and kind of just playing with that and flipping it around and doing unexpected things with it in story. Anytime people, writers and creators do that, I enjoy it for sure. um yeah, so is there anything else about Faithless that you wanted to chat about?
Uh, Well, I don't want to give away anything. One of the things that was funny that I thought was a weird stance, like, I mean, it might not be exactly what he thinks, he might just be saying it for the thing, but basically, the devil and Brian accusing artists of being stuck in their own worlds,
Hmm.
saying that. the more self-reflective something is, like the less true it is. That only God is truth.
Hmm.
Only the things, the actual objects are truth. And in creating our own art or our own self truths, we're just cheap imitations and self-important and think that we're gods or something by doing so. And I was like, damn, that's harsh.
Yeah, it's that whole like going back to the kind of philosophy side of it, like the Platonic ideal of the thing, and like the art is always a representation of the thing itself. Um, which is interesting, but it is a harsh stance. And I feel like I kind of remember like writing something about this like in college and arguing that like, yeah, but art is its own thing. Like it is a representation of the thing, but it's also its own thing, and that has value.
Yeah, and I was like, I guess I didn't ever think that I was trying to create something better. I always understood art as studying the world, like always wanting to learn more and know more. And the more that you did learn and know, the more it informed your art. So to see that take on it, I was like, wow.
It's interesting because I guess there is some degree of ego because you're creating characters, like you're creating people and you're deciding what happens to them. There is some like ego in that.
I guess
But
you are.
also, yeah. Yeah, we are kind of like our own little gods. But also I agree with you too that I think it is not necessarily trying to create something like better. It's an exploration of life and your experiences. And yeah, it's maybe a little bit of both, I guess. Like there is that kind of creation element to it, but then I think it's also interpretive. It's an interpretation of experience too.
And even still, I feel like I wouldn't be able to help myself. Even if somebody told me like, oh, that's like a sin, like you can't draw, you can't paint, it's
Yeah.
a sin to like create things, I'd be like, why though?
Yeah, same.
But this is like, it feels intrinsic to me. I mean, I don't know if we were just blank like little slabs coming into the world and art is a thing that doesn't exist, like I don't know. Would we still like have this? It's not possible. Art has always been around. Like when we like go back 70,000 years or even further, like the cave drawings and like carving. And like they were finding a little off topic, but anthropologists were finding that burial sites are older than they previously thought. And not only that, like Homo sapiens aren't the only hominid to bury their dead. So that idea of, oh, Homo sapiens were just the smartest, and we had social connections, so that's what helped us survive. No, it was some other set of circumstances, probably because other hominids had feelings and thoughts and connections. So I don't know. I think that was definitely it felt like almost like like a Puritan take on it, like the kind of the sect of Christianity that's like any kind of embellishment is sin, like wearing red is sin.
Yeah, any kind of like like indulgent thing.
But so much, it's not like I don't even see it as anything like that. I think that to be human is to need to create. Art can be so many things, like depending on who you are, like where you find your purpose in things. And that was something that this book made me think of. Especially when you get towards the end and they start dropping some lines and I had to like read
I'm
a
excited
page.
for that.
several times over. And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? I was like, fancy philosophy, like what?
Wow. Oh, now I'm excited to get to that part.
Oh.
But yeah, I totally agree. I think there is that kind of like puritanical view that exists that like art is indulgent, or like, you know, thinking that like you're an artist isn't indulgent. But I think it is, I think it's intrinsically human. I think there is this, because it's an expression of our experiences and an exploration of what we experience. And I think there is something kind of intrinsically human about the need to do that, to kind of like try to make sense of what we're experiencing.
Yeah, and Faith is there, and she's just like literally in the fire.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to see, like you said, she's just like there for it. And um you worry for her a bit, but she's so capable, and she's just she's a few steps ahead all the time. Like even when she's not, she is.
Yeah.
So it's a delight. I would like to channel my Faith, my inner
Yeah,
Faith.
same. Me too. That's something I like about her as a character, that like all of this just wild stuff is happening around her, but she like isn't daunted by it. She just goes with it.
Yeah. Dang.
Yep, she's a good protagonist. Um, yeah, I think that is probably a good spot to wrap up. We're getting close to time, I think. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Any projects you have coming up? Any place people can find you?
Oh, okay. So we are finishing up our first volume of Fennec. It's a tokusatsu thriller set at the dawn of apocalypse,
Awesome.
in another world. And what's important about this series in particular, I mean, apart from it being ours, is that the henshin hero genre is, it can be campy, and it's mostly been set in tones for young adults and children, like on this side of the world. And so this time we were hoping to get like more of like a gritty feeling. So this is not for kids, 18 plus. And it really explores more of the psychology and like in-depth character building than
Wow.
traditional tokus might. Because I not to say that there's not character development, but it's like it's a little bit lighter. Like here we're dealing with more traumas, and so that's the part of it that I really love, because I like to psychoanalyze everything, even though that's not like my realm of expertise at all. I just find physiology and psychology and sociology and all that stuff fascinating, because I'm an
Yeah.
artist.
Same.
So we'll be happy to release the final 2 chapters of 4 and 5 in one volume. The Kickstarter is going to be starting in March. You can find links to our socials on our website, lifeonsaturnart.com. And we already have book 1 of Mana Kingdoms out, which was our like first project with another writer that we're going to be continuing. We're working on chapter 2 that will be released this spring. You can find that at Forbidden Planet, New York City.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
Nice.
Just a bunch of other stuff that's going to be coming out. So follow us on Instagram at Life on Saturn Comics, and we'll keep you posted on all that good stuff coming out.
That all sounds super exciting. I'll definitely be following.
Thank you.
Um, Well, yeah, this was a great conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.